All right guys, on today's video, we're gonna go over Oahu. Oahu Explained. So Mahe did Honolulu Explained. We got a really great response from that video. So we're gonna talk about the whole island. We get a lot of these questions. So people come in and they're like, well, we're kind of looking at Kailua, but we could do like Kakaako, and we're open to the North Shore and Ewa. And as agents, we're like, no way, because you're probably not gonna be happy with 2 or 3 of those options, and we need to help you focus it down to 1. That's part of what we do, right? So I'm gonna try and help you guys dial it in this video. Honolulu, like our other video, or what we would call town. On Mahi's video, I was watching it and I was like, no, I think town starts here, you know, kind of a little different. We had someone comment, I think just today, was like, well, being from Laie, we figure town starts in Kaneohe. As we come down the east side of the island, it starts here. For most of the island, they're like, what? That's not town. But just like if you lived in Tennessee, right? If you live 200 miles outside of things, when you hit that first, like, you know, store or Walmart or whatever, that's like the city. So that all happens on a really condensed scale here. And that's worth noting too. If you've ever been to like the San Francisco Bay Area, LA, New York, transitions happen over tens and tens, hundreds maybe of miles. Like in the case of the Bay Area, California, you have the coast, then you have this big body of water, the bay, then you have like a reset of the city, and then you have more suburbia. It takes 100-something miles to get to the country. It's one of the beautiful things about Hawaii is this all happens on a condensed scale. So let's start in town. We have a lot of videos on this showing you downtown, Kakaako, Ward, etc. So we'll link those videos in the show notes, or they'll probably be on the play next button. Town is the city, urban area. I don't know crime statistics, but as goes with cities, I'm sure there's probably more crime there than there is out in the country. If you want like vegan food and some like broccoli sprout, avocado toast on fair trade bread or something, typically the further you go away from the city center, the less common that is, right? For much of town, now there's like Kalihi, there's the more Mauka parts of town. In general, Ward, Kakaako, Mililani, I'm thinking I want more walkability. It's the most walkable place. I want eateries. I'm dealing with $18 lunches to have, you know, little cooler things and trendier stuff. Proximity to the ocean. Now you're not on this like postcard, picturesque, only person on the beach situation, but if you live in Ward, you're right there by the ocean. Even Kakaako, just like barely a couple more blocks of a haul, but you're right, you know, you're right near the ocean. You go for your morning jogs right along the ocean. If I work, you know, if I'm an attorney, I work at most of the hospitals, right? So Straub, Queens, Kaiser is close to town. I wouldn't call that town. Straub, Queens, Mililani Women's and Children, Shriners, probably a number of more medical facilities. So for work, for commute, for hustle and bustle, I think it goes without saying, town is town. If you're from Hawaii, comment, like, how are townies different than wherever you're from? So if you're from Kaneohe, you're from Ewa, Waianae, North Shore, Mililani. When I was in high school, and one of my friends, he became a good friend, he moved from town to my school, and I started hanging with his friends. I noticed there's just like a different thing to them. Like they were just street smart in a different way. At my school, guys fought, and like there was that kind of street smart, but here, like, they knew their way around the city. They were like not uncomfortable around maybe homeless people, or their pidgin, you know, their version of Hawaiian pidgin was just a little different. Like townies, as is with city people in any big metro area, townies, little different vibe. We tried to make this political video. I couldn't walk the line, and I just didn't feel good making it, but I'm gonna try and walk that tightrope here. One of the refreshing things about Hawaii is we've always been like progressive in that, like, you know, your cousin's gay, or take care of the land. Like way before global warming, Hawaiians are like, this is our land, cherish it. Some of these like progressive values like have always been a staple here, but also like conservative values that we find endearing also, like the nuclear family, going to church on Sunday, or you know, things like that. Like Hawaii's always had this nice harmony. I did a class one time when I was in the Coast Guard, it's probably 13 years ago, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. At the beginning of the class, they showed this island of Mauritius. It's like a little island off of Africa. And they talked about how there's Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Catholics, Buddhists, like for whatever reason, I don't remember how it happened, all these people from different religions live in harmony on this island. They even acknowledge the other's holidays. Hawaii has a little bit of that, you know, like there's It's probably the closest thing to that in America. It's paradoxical because we always vote blue, but we're more conservative than that voting agenda would show, and it's a different type of liberalism. And so where I was going with that is town, as is with cities. Kids are probably talking a little more about what did Mahi's kids say the other day? Oh, Mahi made a joke. She's like, I feel like that was a hate crime against me. I feel like, and then her daughter was like, Mom, you don't know what hate crime, obviously you know the definition. And so like, but she goes to school in a more progressive, towny kind of vibe. I doubt that the kids in like Waialua on the North Shore of Waianae are so concerned with like, that's not inclusive, that's exclusive. That kind of happens as you get away from the city in general, right? I'm sure the same goes for Austin, Texas, where it's like, keep Austin weird, and then it's like 100-acre ranch outside of the city. As you move towards the leeward side, so you're gonna go along the freeway, you still feel like you're in a metro area, Aiea, Salt Lake. It's just the fading of the city, really. You get to Aiea, Pro City, you have, in my opinion, the best mall on the island. So Ala Moana is like definitely the biggest and most grandest mall, but like the locals mall shopping center is Pro Ridge. So still kind of concrete-ish. And then when you go to past Pro City, where the H1, H2, so right over there, H1, H2 split, you have your last two high-rises on the island, really. You go past those and now you're in a different thing. So we're standing here in Waikiki, kind of southwest central of the island. Things changed to a little bit more suburbia. We're not quite yet country. So Ewa Beach, Kapolei, leeward side, Ewa Beach, Kapolei. If I put you here at midnight, put you in a certain neighborhood in Ewa, you went to sleep and woke up, you'd walk out and you may think you're in Arizona. Actually, there's a few neighborhoods, one of which I lived in as a young person, called Prescott and Sonoma. Yeah, we have a client right now actually in Prescott. Christine, hi, if you watch this. Ewa Beach, Kapolei, it was just fields. It was much of nothing except for some plantation communities that worked those fields at one point. And then when it came time to cater to the population growth, there goes the expansion. There hadn't been much building for decades except for Mililani and Ewa. All the rest of the building on this island kind of halted in the like late 70s. There's not a lot of special to say about Ewa and Kapolei. I mean, I grew up there actually. It's just suburbia and the traffic's bad. So as you go that way, that's the main artery and the worst traffic on the island. So as you go towards Ewa, it gets worse and worse the more west you go. One caveat to Ewa and Kapolei, Makakilo is its own thing. Makakilo is this mountain that did have building up into the 70s and stuff, kind of halted, and just like the rest of the Ewa and Kapolei area, they started building new houses. I've said it in my 5 places to retire video, said it other times. Makakilo for me might be the best bargain. Like if I want to retire on a budget, I don't have to worry about kids. I'm like, let's say you're at like 2.5 million or something like that. Where's my 2.5 million going? Like Hawaii Kai versus like Ewa, Makakilo. You get a bigger house. You still have ocean views. Now they're back a bit because there's the Ewa plane in front of you. But Makakilo can be one of the best bargains on the island, in my opinion. Let's keep going west, and then we'll go all the way. We'll go back to town and go to Hawaii Kai. To give you an idea, Waianae, we did our Waianae video. It's the most popular video on the channel, I think, because it's such a polarizing name, Waianae, for both local people and for maybe people that started studying Hawaii, right? Waianae is where Max Holloway is from. Yancy Medeiros, these MMA fighters. When I go Waianae, I see small business owners that own, for example, like I think Oahu Waste Management. My uncle in Florida, who owns a septic tank company, lives on the outskirts of town, because where are you gonna keep a bunch of porta potties and septic trucks? He's in a residential / commercial zoned area on the outskirts of town, and that's where they do that. When I think of him, and I'm always thinking business, so what if I opened a porta potty business in Hawaii? It would be the west side. That's where you get that land to do that sort of thing. Truck drivers who have their own truck and paint it with their late great grandma tutu or something like that. Waianae has like a rich culture that's obviously different than the rest of the island. You pass Ko'olina, the resort, which we've done videos on that, so I'm not gonna focus on Ko'olina. It's a whole resort, it's a whole vibe of its own. And you see the spirit of Waianae as soon as you get to Nanakuli. One thing I'll say though, everyone I met from West Side, they see the video, and I would say me, less so you, because nobody knows you behind the camera, a little insecure about we wanted to represent the spirit of the West Side of Oahu without being disrespectful, but also with being honest. Everyone I met from the West Side, for the most part, has been like, hey, bro, solid video. I didn't know you knew about that restaurant. Wow. Only people from Westside know about that. And like, thanks for representing us correctly. That's one of my most proud things about this channel actually is that, the compliments from the Westside. But the Westside has its own spirit. If you had an invite, you don't know who it is, you don't know where it is, you get 4 invites. 1 town, 1 East Oahu, 1 North Shore, which this is the caveat, that's this hard one, or 1 Westside. It's a graduation party. Which one are you picking?
The most lit one is gonna be probably Westside.
The Westside grad party, right? These huge tarps we put up. People have been making food and freezing it. A band that you hear on the radio. If I don't know what's what, I'm picking the Westside grad party. East Oahu and East Honolulu, kind of 2 different things. Like when you go east on Kalaniana Ole Highway, you hit Kahala, which to you is Kahala town or Kahala start of East Honolulu?
Diamond Head is like
Waialae, yeah. Once you pass Waialae, that's it, yeah. Diamond Head, yeah. Kahala, Aina, Haina, Waikiki, Waialae Nui, Waialua Ridge, and all the way to Hawaii Kai, Kama Valley, and everything in between. I was trying to think of Kuli'o'o. Actually, we should just shout out the bulletin. if people are in Kuli'o'o, they're like, yeah, not from Hawaii Kai, from Kuli'o'o, which I'd probably do the same thing. So I fully get it. Manoa and like Nu'uanu. These 2 valleys are its own thing in town. Like yes, it's town. As far as cities go, like in Oakland, California, you have the city, but then you have Piedmont. It's like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air-ish looking kind of neighborhood, right in Oakland. It's their own police, their own school system, their own government. It's its own thing. Manoa and Nu'uanu aren't quite that, but it's town, but it's not. You go into Manoa, and you feel like you're just in like almost like the lungs of the island, of like the middle of the city. It's green, the way the sun hits the mountains, it's like the lungs of the city. It's beautiful, but you're right there in town. If you wanted to feel secluded, you wanted to feel serene and kind of feel a little bit of that Hawaii country green vibe, but be able to be right in town and be able to Uber to those bars and do all this stuff, Manoa would hands down be it. So let's go East Honolulu. This is an overgeneralization, but in general, Kahala is that thing that is also really close to town, but is more of the country club. Places like Blackpoint, cliffside homes worth 20 million plus. You know, the average price point at this point is probably, you'd have to correct for like the mega luxury. I bet you the average price point in Kahala is probably 1.8 to 2.4-ish range, somewhere in there. Like, again, as with any city, there's gonna be that neighborhood that's right there, close to the city, offers a country club, offers a Whole Foods, a parking spot for the Bugatti, but is right there close to the grind. And that's really Kahala for us. If you were to name your company Kahala Construction, Kahala Windows, or whatever, the intention behind that is to be like Kahala, you know what I mean? So, fair enough, right? Fair enough. Pro City Windows, it's not Kahala Windows, it's a whole different thing. Kahala is the start of that, and then really, I mean, as you go east, these ridges and these valleys in between Kahala and Hawaii Kai, they're not all too different. It's a very specific and nuanced conversation, but let's just talk Hawaiiloa Ridge. So Hawaiiloa Ridge, gated. If you polled people on the island, there would be a percentage of people that say, oh, that's the nicest, like most luxury place on the island, Hawaiiloa Ridge. Port Lock would come up, Kahala, Blackpoint would come up, Hawaiiloa Ridge would come into that conversation. So there's actually a physician from California who reached out last year, and he's like, well, would people know where this is? Like, I want some street cred to where, like, he wanted his home to hold, his neighborhood, his community, to hold a level of prestige. Like, Hawaiiloa Ridge was a place that he was looking. Do you think Hawaiiloa Ridge would be top 3 best views on the island?
In the Blackpoint video, he's talking about not too many places you get the elevation with the proximity.
With the proximity.
Compared to Makakilo with like Everplains and NB.
Yeah. So that's a good point. Let's talk Makakilo versus say Hawaiiloa Ridge, Waikiki, these ridges. Makakilo is set back. You have an ocean view, but there's all this stuff in between you and the ocean view. Hawaiiloa Ridge is a little more like Maui, where as you go west Maui, south Maui, you can be on these cliffs and the ocean's right there. Like you feel like you could shoot an arrow into the ocean because you're so close. You don't get that on Oahu a lot. There's not a lot of places where the elevation happens right after the ocean. You can like live here and look at the ocean and kind of have the balance of like smelling it, seeing it, feeling the energy of it, but not having all the salt because you're just far enough away. there's not a lot of that, so that's one of the things that makes Hawaiiloa Ridge, Waikiki, these places so expensive. When I worked at a hospital here in Hawaii briefly, we're starting another channel, so for the real estate agents to watch this, I'll tell my whole story about, you know, how I transitioned from healthcare to business, and from Coast Guard to owning a business at the same time, to healthcare, to dropping it all, burning the bridges, and crushing in real estate. When I worked at a hospital, briefly, it seemed every physician I talked to lived east of Manoa even. I don't even know if I knew any that lived in Manoa. They all seemed to live between Hawaii Kai and Kahala. I remember thinking like every single one of them lived down Kalanianaole Highway. At like 10, 15, 20 that this conversation came up with. We're not gonna touch every ridge and whatever, but go all the way to Hawaii Kai. So what is Hawaii Kai? Hawaii Kai, so there's not really much shopping. There's a Haina shopping center, right? Between Kahala and Hawaii Kai, I think there's one. Is there another one?
New Valley.
New Valley, yeah, shopping center. I don't know if they're doing war games or something, but they're doing like choke. In fact, in one of our videos, I was talking about how, oh, Mililani doesn't have the noise pollution that Eva does, but like, bruh, like our house been shaking recently. So where we're at, Hawaii Kai, there's just more to do, right? There's big shopping centers, Costco, restaurants, Island Brew Coffee, and there's more population. And you're close to Sandy's, Makapu'u, which one of the most secluded places you can get without having to get off road is like Makapu'u area. Hawaii Kai is just, you're willing to deal with more traffic. You don't need to be as close to the city as Kahala or even Hawaiiloa Ridge. Because of the distance from town, more dense population, higher inventory of homes, it's not as expensive as Kahala and Hawaiiloa Ridge. Some would say not as prestigious, I guess, if that were a thing you're looking for, but there are places like Napali Havale. We can show you the views from some of these ridges in Hawaii Kai, but it's a marina town. So when I'm looking at like California, I'm thinking like Dana Point, Laguna. Put it in the comments, what do you see in a marina town versus a beach town? Or even like on the East Coast, like I'm sure, I don't know New Jersey and New York and these places as well, but I'm sure there's like places that are like centered kind of around like boating and people that have boats, etc. And there's a marina versus like a surfer's town. It's different. Hawaii Kai is not a surfer's town. I mean, not that there aren't rippers. If you're, you know, a shredder that lives in Hawaii Kai, sorry. But it's not a surf town, it's a marina town. It's a different thing. A little more loafers with no socks and pastels than, say, like, let's move to Kailua. Kailua is a beach town. I still wouldn't call it a surfer town, so Hawaii Kai marina town, Kailua beach town, Haleiwa North Shore surfer town. Different things. Kailua has to be one of the most popular places for relocators. People coming from the mainland, they're always drawn to Kailua. I hear school district references, I hear walkability references, so most walkable place, potentially depending on where you live, like Norfolk obviously isn't very walkable, but for a lot of Kailua, it's one of the most walkable places on the island that isn't the urban metro area. Downtown Kailua is cool. You have breweries, one of the cooler coffee shops on the island. And then when you have coffee shops, a lot of times they're like so overly touristy, like Honolulu Coffee Company, which actually my wife's favorite. Kailua's got a cool independent coffee shop where you can get some amazing pesto bagel type stuff. People like biking on beach cruisers and dragging kayaks to the beach. Probably a crystal shop and people walking barefoot so that they get the, you know, negative ions grounded out of them. It can be amazingly luxury, like in Lani Kai. It can be a little more bike to the corner store and get a six-pack, like Coconut Grove-ish area. Kailua it's an interesting mix, and to be fair, growing up, I didn't see the draw. Since I've helped so many people buy homes in Kailua, and our team's helped so many people buy homes, I get it. I mean, you're coming from the mainland, you don't come to Hawaii to like be landlocked. You come to Hawaii to get exposed to the ocean. If you don't need the marina and you want beach, and you still got to commute to somewhere, Kailua is one of the more favorable commutes in Hawaii. The National Weather Center probably has this data. Kailua it's wet, especially if you're like Maunawili or something, but it's not as wet as Kaneohe. That takes us to our next East Honolulu place, Kaneohe. East side town, different vibe. Ko'olaus, these Ko'olau mountains is really what you're like, Ko'olaus and wetness. Like Kaneohe the mountains are gorgeous, but now you're like locked by this bay. So kind of like how Hawaii Kai is not a beach town, Kaneohe is not a beach town either because of that bay. Now, you can go out to the Kaneohe sandbar and do ocean kind of things, but it's not a beach town because that water is not, you know, it's the bay, so the tide doesn't come in and out the same. There's not sand. It's not, you're not jumping off a lilipuna to like enjoy the ocean necessarily. But speaking of lilipuna, some of the most amazing views on the island, that's like a less known gem. Kaneohe, be like, I think to our parents, was considered country. You still think it's kind of country?
Yeah.
Like around Windward Mall? That's not country.
Like, Windward Mall is like small and Pro Ridge.
Yeah, but you have a mall, it's not country, right? And here's the thing, these mountains, you go through these mountains and as the crow flies, it's not very far, but you just feel like you're like on Kauai or something, like you're just on a different island. You feel like you're so far away from things. And so we had a little back and forth, well, oh, it is country, it's not country, there's a mall. Well, the mall's small. Kaneohe is where the east side starts to blend into country and you don't have beach access, good beach access anyway, unless you're on the Marine Corps base. They have the best beach access on the whole Kaneohe area, which will strike some nerves, I get it. But now let's go north. Going north of Kaneohe to Laie, the Polynesian Cultural Center, that's what I consider country on this island. Like that's secluded. If you are in a situation where you need 10-minute healthcare, don't move there. If you're in a situation where you don't like chickens roaming around, don't move there. If you need to be close to a Costco, don't move there. But if you need to decompress, if you need to exhale, if you need to chill, like anytime I have a rough day and I just want to take a drive, going that way is probably where I'm headed. And I'm just gonna find a beach somewhere and pop up, maybe put my fishing pole in the water, just tie up a hammock, whatever. I actually don't have a hammock, but those kind of vibes. Like Mililani, Wahiawa deserves its own little shout out. This is Central Oahu. There's not a ton to say about it. There's Schofield Army Base right there. Mililani is like probably I bet you it's the most vast HOA in the whole, on the whole island. From Mililani Mauka to Mililani Town, it spans so far. Now, Launani Valley and Waikalani are not part of the MTA, Mililani Town Association, but they are the Mililani zip code. So Mililani Town, I mean, it actually looks like this, actually. Mililani Town is like these are called monkey pod trees. So if you guys see these Lion King, like just the top of the tree, canopy type of trees, these are called monkey pod trees. Mililani is just this master plan community. Check out the schools and discern for yourself, etc. Mililani is like, kind of like if Eva were older, better commute than Eva in Kapolei. Cooler weather. So Mililani, in Wahiawa, people have chimneys. From back in the day. Can be in the high 50s a few times throughout the year in the mornings in these areas, and it's more wet because those east side showers are coming over. It's always wet. Like just this morning, actually, I live in Mililani. It was more wet than it was here. Mililani is its own thing. I think it's called a Great American Tree City. Like there's some like Arbor Foundation designation because there's so many trees. There's always someone cutting grass somewhere because the association at large takes care of that. You can only paint your house certain colors, etc. You go to Wahiawa, it's an old plantation community. So you could have a smokehouse, you know, build a smoker and smoke your meat or whatever over there. Wahiawa is a different thing. And then let's finish it off with North Shore. We should really have Mahe talking about North Shore. She knows it the best. But when I think of North Shore, another place I go to exhale, like East Honolulu, where there's just, you see keep the country signs as soon as you get into Haleiwa. You can go towards Mokuleia, head back towards Laie, Kahuku, the whole stretch. It's the surf capital of the world. For that reason, for the vast blue oceans, for the amazing, powerful surf, some of the most expensive luxury real estate on the island happens a little more sporadically. But it's not that place where like the doctor who came to us last year, maybe it was earlier this year actually, and he's like, hey, I want people to know my neighborhood and know where I'm living. Like I want a little clout. I'm like, well, North Shore has got some of the most beautiful views, some really expensive real estate, etc. But it's not that thing. There are a few exceptions. You go to Laie Point or like Sunset, etc. There's some exceptions. But North Shore, people are going there because they kind of want to fight the good fight, keep the country, preserve the island. And there's a bit of like, you know, like probably in like Kentucky, if you get out far enough, people kind of govern themselves and have their own guns. And it's like, yeah, well, the law is not going to get here for an hour kind of thing. Well, it's not that. Hawaii's not so much of an NRA gun carrying type of state. However, the North Shore kind of has its own set of rules, you know. It has its own culture and like if you ever watch the movie North Shore, they're teaching this guy about Hawaii culture, and it's about North Shore culture specifically. The North Shore is its own thing. It's to be respected, and I enjoy that actually because I don't want it to become this. So that's Oahu, guys. If you guys have questions, if I didn't hit on anything, if you want to see more videos just explaining the island, diving deep into the nuance, hit us up in the bottom.
Hey guys, real quick, Mahe here with Core Team Hawaii. If you're interested in buying, if you need help moving to Hawaii, please fill out the contact form on our website. As always, our information is below. We'd love to hear from you. We're a small, dedicated team, but we're never too busy to hear from you folks. Check us out. I'd love to see you on a virtual consult.